there is the answer on the screen. Each week we will have a question and an answer. Hello, welcome. We are back together again. English Addict is once more with you. Yes, it is Sunday. We are back together again, and don't forget to give me a like. Like this, please. Like it. Like. I know it sounds desperate, but these are desperate times. Please give me a like. Hi, everybody. Here we are again. Yes, we are back together once more. My name is Mr. Duncan, and this chap over here, this man, is Mr. Steve. Hello, Mr. Steve.
Hello, Mr. Duncan. How are you?
I'm okay, not too bad. It's a glorious day. I don't know what is going on with the weather. We are having all sorts of weird weather at the moment. We had rain yesterday. Would you like to see some very unhappy cows in the rain? We went out for a walk yesterday, and this is what we saw whilst we were walking. Look at these poor cows. What a group of miserable-looking cows. And they were sheltering under the trees because it was raining. And also we got caught in the rain as well, didn't we?
Hail. In fact, we had not just rain, we had hail. A hailstorm, but most of them just bumped and bounced off us. So we didn't actually get wet, thankfully, but we had to shelter because that's what you do when it rains.
Yes.
Thankfully, it wasn't a thunderstorm. Otherwise, we might have got struck by lightning, but it wasn't.
And that's what those cows are doing. They're sheltering under the trees. They do not like the wet weather at all. Rather like us, really, when you think about it. We are here again, English Addict, on a beautiful sunny day. It's a sunny Sunday. It is a sunny day. It's Sunday and it's sunny. It's amazing, really. And today we have a different background. This is looking out of the window again, across towards Shrewsbury. And there are some interesting things to show today concerning the background. Can you see that just above my head? There it is, just next to me there. That is a well-known monument, and I'm going to show you what it is right now. Would you like?
In Shrewsbury.
In Shrewsbury.
Or is it Shrewsbury? You can pronounce that two ways.
So there it is. That's what you can see behind us.
Who is that handsome gentleman?
That handsome man is Lord Rowland Hill. And he has a large erection on show. Would you like to see the man himself? He's quite good looking, actually. There he is. Isn't he lovely? What a lovely man. And for those who don't know who this man is, well, first of all, he was born in this area. He was born in Shropshire, in a place called Preece, way back in 1772. And he died in Shropshire as well, in a place called Hadnall. And that is where he is buried. He died in 1842. And he served in the Napoleonic War. That's what he actually did. And he has a large statue in tribute to him. But unfortunately, a few years ago, the large statue started falling to pieces, and they had to put some scaffolding and support all around it because it was falling to pieces. And things are so bad that now they are thinking of replacing the statue completely.
So they've neglected it for a long period of time, and now it's beyond repair and needs completely replacing, which is often what happens when you fail to maintain things.
Yes.
But of course, it looks all right there, Mr. Duncan. Is that an old picture?
That is an old photograph, but pieces of it are falling off, and now they are raising money to make a fake one. So they want to replace what is there at the moment because it's falling to pieces. They want to actually make a new one and replace it, but it will cost £500,000.
What was his name again? Rowland.
Rowland Hill.
So he was basically famous in this area. Was he a general or something like that? Was he
Yes.
something famous in the
yes,
army?
he served in the Napoleonic War.
And
And his nickname, apparently, to the other soldiers
Rowley?
was Daddy Hill.
Daddy Hill.
Sounds a
or
bit
Roly-poly.
He was also the commander of the British Army in 1828.
Well, there you go. That's why he's got a statue then.
Yes.
He reached the heights of commander of the British Army, and hence, if you reach those heights, then you end up staying on those heights as a statue.
And all I can say is I'm glad they didn't put the statue on a hill, because then it would have been Lord Hill.
Anyway, I think I know where that is. It's on a roundabout, isn't it, in
Yes.
Shrewsbury? So the traffic goes round. It's on a roundabout.
In fact, it leads us to our next landmark. So there is the Hill Monument, and there, just above my finger now, that is the Council House, the Shire Council House. So these two things are actually almost opposite each other. Would you like to see a picture of the Council House? I know you do.
Particularly
Look at that. Now, I love this building. Do you know why?
because that's where we registered our civil partnership.
It actually is one of my favourite types of building, brutalism. Have you heard of that, Steve?
Or is it 60s architecture?
It is concrete. It is brutal concrete. And it is actually one of my favourite types of architecture, where they make the actual building look quite menacing, and they use a lot of concrete. But this is actually, at the moment, being sold, and it might even be demolished. And there are people trying to save this building, which was built in the 1960s.
Fascinating. Look at all those. Look at all those solar panels that they've put up there, Mr. Duncan. There. Look at all those solar panels on the left there.
There are.
There are. Looks like hundreds of solar panels.
Lots of solar panels.
So yes, maybe if they're selling those off cheap, I'll get some and stick them on our roof.
So that is the building there, you can see. And just over here, behind Mr. Steve's shoulder, you can see the main motorway that connects, I suppose you could say it goes towards Wales. It is the M54 motorway.
As it connects the West Midlands, it connects Birmingham and Wolverhampton with Shropshire.
Yes, so there is a lot going on in today's background. We have the monument to Lord Hill. We have the Shire House, or the Council House, over there. So that is the place where all of the big decisions are made. And just there, we have the M54 motorway with lots of vehicles going by.
It's infamous as a driver because the M54 motorway, which is the motorway I have to use all the time to get between it's the only main road really between here, where we live, in the country, to the West Midlands conurbation,
Yes.
Birmingham and Wolverhampton. But when they built it, whenever that was,
I remember it being built.
yes, probably in the 70s.
Yes, it was a big thing because of course I live in Stafford, or I did, and that's where I was raised. And I remember that motorway being actually constructed. It was always in the news being talked about.
But the thing is, they constructed it not out of tarmac. The surface is made from concrete. And as anyone will know, if you live in a country with concrete surfaced roads, it's a very noisy motorway to travel on. So thankfully it's mercifully not very long. It's only about 10 miles long or something. But you are subjected to large amounts of road noise and vibration in your car.
And if there's one thing Steve hates, it is vibration and road noise in the car. So
It's a horrible motorway, actually.
It is a very busy background. So not only can you look at us being all handsome and lovely, you can also admire the Shropshire landscape behind us as well. Hello to the live chat, I suppose I should say. Hello to the live chat. Hello also Vitas. Guess what? You are first on today's live stream.
Well done. Palmyra asks, Lord Rowland Hill, was he fighting on Napoleon's side?
No.
Well, absolutely no, he wouldn't have been.
We wouldn't put a monument up for the enemy, would we? I mean, that's just silly.
Well, yes. Well, probably, people don't know. I mean, yes, Napoleon was our enemy at the time. So yes, he was not fighting on the side of. Maybe that was a bit of a joke question, but yeah,
maybe.
But anyway, no, he was definitely not fighting. Well, I mean, he didn't defect, as far as we know. Otherwise, he wouldn't have had a monument.
I think it's safe to say he's now resting in peace in Shropshire. So it seems as if he always lived here. One of the things I notice sometimes is when a person becomes famous, they might be born in a lovely place, but then they move away and they forget all about their roots. I like that expression, your roots.
Yes.
Your roots are, I suppose you could say, your beginnings in life, the place where you were raised. So we often think of a person having roots. Think of a tree or a plant growing. So when we are growing up, we often grow up in a certain place, and that particular place can be described as your roots.
Where are your roots? People often ask you that if you're at work and you're meeting people for the first time, or they get to know you. They might ask, they want to know more about you. Where were you born? Where were you brought up? Where are your roots? And some people do have roots, other people don't. I don't really have roots because when I was growing up, my family moved around quite a lot. Your roots are in Stafford.
Definitely.
You were born, raised to adulthood there.
I almost never left Stafford.
But I don't really have roots because my father, because of his nature of his job, moved around quite a lot. And some people like to have roots. They like to go back to their roots when they were born. It doesn't really bother me that much, but it probably is nice to have roots because at least you've got some anchor somewhere.
Yes,
that is your place where you were born and brought up. But of course, in this chaotic world now, a lot of people all around the world don't really have roots.
People move around more, even though as a child, most people will still stay relatively in one area. So we talk about our roots, the place where you were raised, or maybe the place where your family has lived for many years. Can I say a big hello to Luis Mendez? And we had some lovely good news. Very pleased to hear your good news, Luis, about your wife. So all the best to you and also to her as well. And I'm glad you are here, even though I think Luis is having some difficulty watching today. By the way, no Claudia. I don't think Claudia is with us because she's having a picnic outside.
How delightful.
I think she's having a barbecue in the garden. So
she's cooking as usual.
Yes.
Stefan, hello Stefan from Germany. Welcome. Makes a comment that you can get rid of road noise if you increase your speed, which is, of course, if you've got autobahns, which we don't.
Yes.
We don't have autobahns here. We can only go 70. I can reassure you, Stefan, that on the concrete motorways, the faster you go, the noisier it gets.
Yes, it doesn't get better; it gets worse.
I know. And the M40, we've got a motorway. This is boring for people, I'm sure.
No,
we've got a motorway.
Where is the M40?
The M40 goes from Birmingham south, sort of southwest towards London. There are a few motorways that go towards London, but the M40 is a popular one. It's a relatively new motorway. I don't think it was built until the 1980s, 1990s, something like that.
It's amazing how many motorways were built around the 1960s. So even the very early motorways were built after the Second World War. So none of that infrastructure is very old when you think about it.
The M40 is quite new. Until the M40 was built, people had to go down the M1. That was the standard way into London. So M1, you can probably guess, M stands for motorway and 1. that was the first motorway, 3-lane motorway that was built. Of course, in Germany, as we know, they were building these phenomenal roads, autobahns and motorways. Autobahns, as they call them there.
It's one of
well before we did.
It's one of Hitler's better ideas.
Yes, he was very good with infrastructure. But yes, no. What the comment I was going to make about the M40 is, again, that has been surfaced with very noisy tarmac.
Yeah,
and I had to travel down to London this week for work.
You did,
and it's the M40. You have to stay on it for about 70 something miles, nearly 80 miles. And it's 80 miles of constant drone because of the poor surface that it was built with. Whereas if you go down the M1's a beautiful motorway. I like the M6 as well. It's quite quiet. It's smooth. But the M40 is not the best constructed motorway in the UK.
So it is. What we've learned today so far is it is better to drive on smooth tarmac than horrible, bumpy concrete.
It's less stressful when you're driving. But anyway, let's not go into that.
Anyway, we have a lot to talk about today. We are talking about dreams. Many ways of expressing dreams, I suppose. You can talk about being a daydreamer. We can talk about what happens when you sleep. Most of us have some sort of dream. Also, we are going to take a look at a thing we did last week. We went to a special place last week to have a look at some lovely animals.
We did.
In a couple of seconds, we are going to show the first part of it. So we went to a very special place called West Midlands Safari Park. And as its name suggests, it is a safari park where you can drive around amongst the wild animals. Some of them are quite dangerous, so you have to keep the windows up on your car. You can't get out of the car. And some of the animals got very close to the car, as we will see a little bit later.
It was very exciting, wasn't it, Mr. Duncan? What we couldn't believe is how close it was to where we live. Right on our doorstep. Basically, less than, it wasn't even 40 minutes drive.
So it's quite close, but we've never really been there. And that happens a lot, doesn't it? When you have a well-known place very close to your house, but you tend not to go there.
Some very interesting footage that Mr. Duncan has filmed while we were there, coming up shortly.
Yeah, in a few seconds, in fact.
Oh.
In fact, it's coming up right now. Look out for the lovely animals, and I hope you enjoy it as much as we enjoyed going around. We had the most amazing time last week, and I have to say it was pretty good fun. I have to say it was brilliant, wasn't it?
Yes, and there's some incredible footage coming up a bit later, so stay tuned. If you like...
we won't say yet.
Well...
There's a certain type of animal. It is the largest animal that exists on land.
You mean the tallest?
Well, yes. I don't want to give too much away, you see. So it's very big. It's not an elephant, but it is a type of animal that lives in the same part of the world. And that's all I'm saying for now. But we have some very good footage, some lovely video coming up later on of that. Mr. Steve, this morning we had something that we often have every day when you are here. Can you guess what it is?
Cup of tea?
Nearly.
Cup of coffee?
Ah, yes.
Freshly baked bread?
We had coffee. And we started the day with a cup of tea. So today, before we go any further, a very important question. Are you a coffee person or are you a tea person? So some people like to have a cup of coffee in the morning. Some people prefer to have a cup of tea. And the reason why I mention this is whilst you were away, I started my day with a cup of coffee. I woke up and I had a cup of coffee in the morning and I got the worst indigestion that I've had in a long time. Isn't that strange? So I don't think I'm going to have coffee in the morning, but I will have coffee mid-morning at around about 11 o'clock. Normally, I make a cup of coffee for Mr. Steve as well. When he's working in his office upstairs, I take a cup of coffee up to you, don't I?
You do.
Yes.
Yes. Well, yeah, we always start the day with tea, but only because I've always done that. But a lot of people now, well, certainly in America, I think coffee is the preferred drink to start the day with.
Yes.
And I've got a lot of friends at work who can't function. And you all know people like this. Maybe you're one yourself. Unless they've had 1 or 2 cups of coffee, they can't really function properly, i.e. get on with their job, get on with their day. And I must admit, when I've had the 11 o'clock cup of coffee, around 11 o'clock, I don't know, I look forward to it. It sort of perks me up. I don't know whether it is the caffeine. I think that it probably is, or whether it's just I look forward to it. But yes, so we only have 1 cup a day.
Yes, so this is something that I wanted to mention because there are people who can't sit at their work desk without having a cup of coffee in front of them, which means that they drink a lot of coffee during the day. And we've noticed as well, if we have 2 cups of coffee during the day, we both get all hyper excited, and we can't have that, can we?
Francesca says, I can't open my eyes without coffee. Stefan says, without coffee, I act like a zombie. But yes, a lot of people do. I don't know whether it's becomes a habit. I'm obviously not criticising anybody here, but I mean, I always have a cup of tea in the morning because I think it gets me going. Coffee does it for some people. But whatever you need to get going in the morning, then, you know, because it is difficult, particularly as winter. A lot of us in Europe now, winter's coming on, the dark nights, the shorter days. You're often waking up when it's still dark, particularly if you've got to get to work somewhere, you've got to drive. I've noticed now it's dark now here, even if you're waking up at sort of 6 o'clock.
Well, it doesn't get light now until about 7:15.
That's right. So most people, a lot of people, and soon it'll be later than that.
Anyway.
So when you're getting up, there's nothing worse, is there, than getting up in the dark. You wake up and it's still dark. You've got to get ready. I hate that. I hate waking up in the winter.
So
going to work.
Coffee or tea, which one, which beverage, which hot beverage do you like to start your day with? By the way, yes, it was cold this morning. We woke up this morning, it was only 4 degrees Celsius.
Yes.
So already it's starting to feel cold.
It's dropped 10 degrees, the temperature, but apparently it's going to get a bit warmer next week. A lot of people, of course, as Stefan says here, a lot of comments from Stefan today, but thank you very much. Start their day with energy drinks instead of tea or coffee. Yes.
That's too much.
I bet the younger generations, Generation Z or whatever it is, I don't know what the generation is now, will start their days with energy drinks. And of course, a lot of people have energy drinks now during the day. I've noticed, I went on a sales conference this week, a lot of people drinking energy drinks.
It's basically
tea or coffee.
It's basically caffeine.
It is.
So you're just basically drinking a lot of caffeine in one go, which I don't think is very good for you if you have too much of it, not good for your heart and your metabolism.
Well,
but we've noticed if we have 2 cups of coffee in the day, we both go a bit wild.
Yes, I get heart palpitations if I have more than 2 cups of coffee a day. In fact, I was getting these heart palpitations, and I went to the doctor, and he said, cut out tea and coffee. And it did help. I've got to say, even though I only drink 1 cup of coffee and 1 cup of tea a day, and then I have a herbal drink later on.
So in the morning, it's normally a cup of tea. I like traditional black tea, very strong, and also my other fafavourite is Earl Grey.
Black? Oh, yes, I see what you mean. Yes, but you put milk in it, don't you?
That's it. Well, black tea is a very strong tea, but I add milk to it. But the flavour is really, really, really strong. And Mr. Steve has breakfast tea and also herbal tea. So you actually quite like herbal tea, don't you?
Yes, I'm into all these herbal teas, Mr. Duncan. Pukka, P-U-K-A, I think it is.
Oh, are we being sponsored by them?
We're not, unfortunately. We're never we always mention these brands, and nobody ever sends us any money for mentioning them. But yes, so there's a mint tea I like. There's a elderberry tea that I like. There's one which is turmeric gold. I think it's. I like those.
What? Now remind me again. What is turmeric supposed to do?
Well, it's supposed to be anti-inflammatory.
That's it.
So I think it's
keeps your joints pain-free.
I don't do it for that because you can't get enough from a herbal drink. I just like the taste of it.
Yes, I'm just saying what people believe.
It's got other things in it.
So a lot of people drink herbal tea because they believe it's good for their body. People like coffee because it's good for their energy level, meaning quite often people don't have much energy. A bit like us, really. Now, we were saying yesterday to each other, wouldn't it be lovely if human beings could just hibernate during the winter? We could just crawl into bed and stay there until spring arrives. I think that's a brilliant idea, to be honest.
The stock markets would suffer if that was to happen, Mr. Duncan. People are saying, well, that's the other thing. How many do people drink a day? Christina says, on average in the UK, she thinks that people are drinking around 6 cups of tea a day. That's probably right, I would say.
Well, in fact, sales of tea in this country have dropped dramatically.
Yes.
And one of the reasons for that, but bizarrely, was COVID, because people were drinking more coffee and having more coffee as a quick drink when they were at home and working from home. So a lot of people do seem to prefer coffee.
It's been a trend for many decades now that the British, who traditionally always drunk lots of tea, with the influence from America and probably when people are travelling a lot, going to other countries around Europe, like Italy, France, where they don't drink that much tea. Coffee is more popular. People are taking on board influences from other countries.
Saturino. Hello, Saturino. Farandolal used to drink more than 10 cups of coffee per day. It is normal in my city, and the coffee is very strong. I've had coffee in Turkey Now, in Turkey, when we went to Turkey, they give you coffee, but it's in a very small cup, and it is incredibly strong. And also Turkish tea as well, which is nice and strong, quite often served in a small glass or a small glass cup. So very, very nice. But coffee and tea, we can take it.
Inaki says that they know some people who are immune to caffeine.
Oh.
So they can have a coffee before going to bed. Yes, and if you and I, we're both the same. If I had so this is why I don't drink coffee after sort of lunchtime. Normally I only have one at 11, but sometimes a customer might offer me one at lunchtime if I'm seeing them. But I wouldn't have one later than that because the caffeine stays in your system for 12 hours. And I know I'm sensitive to it. I wouldn't sleep. But some people, and I know my father was like that, he could drink coffee, tea before he went to bed and just fall straight asleep. Wouldn't have any effect. But it would definitely have a detrimental effect on my ability to sleep. But yes, that is quite interesting. It stays in your system for at least 12 hours, coffee. I think only half of it's gone after 12 hours.
My grandparents on my father's side, they used to put brandy and things like that into their coffee. So they would have coffee and then they would put spirit into the coffee as well. I don't know how they could drink that, but...
Shafiq says, Shafiq Daniel, hello, says, I often drink hot green tea before I go jogging. Yes, well, green tea, of course, is supposed to be health. I think green tea and black tea, they're both very healthy. And it gives you a little boost before you go for a jog, gives you a little bit of small amount of caffeine. I often do that. Thing is, I want to drink green tea, but if I do, it makes me feel sick.
Oh, okay.
Green tea, if I drink green tea, I feel sick. I don't know why. It makes me ill. So I'd like to drink green tea, but when I ever have done in the past, it's made me feel ill.
And of course, part of socialising, when we think of socialising, and this is something we noticed when we were in Paris a few weeks ago with our rendezvous, drinking coffee, drinking tea shops, cafes, incredibly popular and a very big part of French culture. So when we think of French society, we often think of drinking coffee and also eating food, and it's a very big part of it, very similar to Italian society as well, where food and drink is very important in a person's daily activities.
There's always a debate, isn't there? Is coffee good for you or isn't it? There's always somebody writing an article about this or a doctor coming out with some announcement on it. There's always some study, probably funded by the Coffee Bean Association or something, or the coffee growers. Francesca touches on this about whether coffee is good for you. In fact, Francesca said that a doctor told her it was good. 4 to 5 cups of coffee a day.
45?
No, 4 or 5.
Oh, I see.
I think that's it. They do. I think if you read about it, most studies seem to suggest that around 3, 4, 5 cups of coffee is actually good for you, better for you than not having it. But who knows?
Yeah.
Because I don't trust any of these studies because I'm sure they're being funded.
A lot of there must be some corruption involved. The one thing I always hate about coffee is another person's coffee breath. There's nothing worse than that. And I always think, have you noticed this, Steve? Coffee, the smell of coffee always smells very similar to the smell of cigarettes.
Well, it does.
And tobacco.
Yes.
Because they are both roasted. They are both smoked, I suppose, in a certain way. So I always find that quite interesting, that coffee, especially when you smell it on another person's breath, like that. Ooh.
It's horrible.
It's as if they've been smoking.
Well, the coffee grounds. So if you've got one of these machines at home where you make your own coffee from the beans or from the ground up beans, if you leave those ground up beans cold lying around, the next day it smells like cigarette ash.
Yeah, it's very strange.
And which is why I do not believe any of these studies that say that it's good for you. I cannot believe that, because anything normally that you eat that's been burnt is not good for you. Burnt meat, burnt anything.
Yes, well, this is what they said about 5 or 6 years ago. They were telling everyone not to eat anything that was slightly burnt because it's not good for your body. So coffee is literally something that's been roasted.
Yes.
It is literally burnt.
And I know people will say there's antioxidants in there and the caffeine is a stimulant, which is good for your kidneys or your liver or something. But I'm not so sure that, I mean, if you just try and think about it logically, smoking is burnt. There's all sorts of toxic chemicals in. I know there aren't toxic chemicals in coffee.
It's the carbon, isn't it?
Yes, but when you burn something, it creates these sort of cancerous substances.
They used to call it free radicals, didn't they, years ago?
Well, they're supposed to be good for you. That's supposed to be the good thing. But it's anyway. I'm sure it's fine. We've got to enjoy something in life.
Everything in moderation.
Yeah, I'm sure if you have 10 cups a day, it's not good for you. I'm sure if you have 3 or 4 cups a day, it's fine.
Anyway, it hasn't put us off because we still have our cup of coffee every day. We had one this morning, and we will have one tomorrow as well if Mr. Steve
Mustafa
is. Oh yes,
Abdallah. Asks, what do you call a person in British English who eats too much?
Oh, we can say that they are a glutton.
Glutton.
Glutton is a great word.
Glutton.
So, glutton refers to a person who eats too much food, and to describe that habit is gluttony. Gluttony is the action of eating too much. The person, as a noun, is a glutton. So you might say a person who is slightly overweight or always has food in their hand is a glutton, gluttonous. So I think it's one of the 7 deadly sins.
Well, yes. So, or you could just say that they're a pig because pigs sort of are always scoffing food and they do it noisily.
Yes.
So yes, glutton would be the sort of a kind. Well, I mean, it's not kind to call anyone a glutton. Are you glutton?
Yes.
You could say it in a joking way.
Or of course, greedy. Just a person who is greedy. They want, but that's generally a person who wants more of everything. So maybe money or success, or they want too much of something, or they want more than their fair share. They are greedy. So I think that's quite a good one.
I think as well, it depends on your profession as well. I think coffee and tea intake is often influenced a lot by what profession you do. So if you work in a very fast-paced sort of environment, maybe just as an example, you're working in the stock exchange, stock markets, or somebody like Francesca who's working in, as we know, Francesca's sort of working in the media, maybe in a very busy office with lots of people, a lot going on, then people feel as though you need the coffee you've got to keep up with everybody else.
Yeah.
Coffee is a stimulant, and so it helps you to almost keep ahead of everybody else or stay on par.
And of course, the more you have of it, the less effective it becomes.
It's like anything, it's like alcohol.
It's like taking drugs. So the more you have of it, the less effective it is. So you need to take more of it. Anyway, we have another clip to show you from our trip last week to West Midlands Safari Park. And we saw some lovely animals swimming around, and also we saw some rather terrifying dinosaurs as well. All of that will be explained right now. Oh, wow, we had such a good time, not only watching the penguins, but also watching the dinosaurs as well.
Yes, did you see that real live Tyrannosaurus Rex? Mr. Duncan, it was a model, of course.
It was so scary.
It was actually quite scary.
It was very realistic, and it was moving around and also making sounds as well. It kept roaring. It was like being at Jurassic Park. But it was quite amazing. So I have to say, that it seems like the sort of thing that wouldn't be interesting to visit, to watch dinosaurs all around you because you know they don't exist anymore. However, that particular one was really scary. Its eyes were actually following you around. It was watching you as you were walking. It was very creepy.
It was very realistic, and the fact that its head was moving and everything. Yes, it was. It did actually. It was strange. You knew it was a model, but it made you quite scared.
They have very small, short arms.
Yeah, so it's definitely worth a visit, that place, even though it was quite expensive. Shall we tell people how much it was to go in?
No.
Okay.
It's a bit...
Unless you're interested.
I have to say, but although it was a little bit expensive to get in, I think it is very good value for money. A huge place.
We could have literally spent, I don't know, 8 hours there.
We were there for a long time anyway.
We didn't see anywhere near all of it.
But we have the most amazing things still to come. A certain animal that we have fallen in love with a lot. And we got very close to these animals. Incredibly close.
Shafiq, hello Shafiq, asked a question earlier when we were looking at going to see the first film you showed, when we were with the sort of the deer and the antelopes, the herbivores, the ones that obviously just eat grass or vegetable matter. Could we have the windows down? Well, the answer is yes, you could. Because you could buy food and you could actually feed them. And I thought it was quite sad because obviously the animals had got used to being fed by all the cars going by, and there were a lot of cars going by, probably 100 cars, I would say, at least. And it was quite sad that they were coming over I thought it was sad that they were coming over to the windows of the cars to obviously to see if you got any food. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword, I think, when you go to these places.
Well, that isn't how they live, though. They're not begging on the streets.
Well, it feels like that.
They are fed.
I know they are fed, but it feels like they're begging for food because animals want food all the time, don't they?
Because you could say the same thing about us feeding the birds in the garden.
I know, I'm just making a...
That's it, yes. Oh, yes, I'm not disagreeing with Mr. Steve. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying it's quite interesting. Yes, it is interesting, but they are very well looked after. And this is the thing I was going to mention. Some people don't like zoos. Some people don't like safari parks. However, quite often these places are also serving a very good purpose or a very good thing because they are protecting certain types of animal. The same thing exists in Africa, where there are many safari parks that are enclosed, not for hunters, because there are some places like that, but I'm on about these organisations that protect the animals, and there are very many animals, certain types of elephant, certain types of rhinoceros, so they have been hunted almost to extinction. So I think there is a place for these things where animals are taken care of and looked after, and they were all very well looked after.
They looked healthy.
The only animals I was concerned about there last Monday were the human beings, because they all looked so miserable. The people working there.
People working there look very miserable. I still think, though, when you've got animals like lions, and they are, I mean, yes, they're not in cages, but the amount of land that they've got to, they can't go leaping around, for a mile. They're very small.
They do spend most of the time asleep, though.
I know, but I think it's a bit sad.
Yes,
but
there are things that they do that allow animals to survive, and they can't be hunted. So no one is going to drive to West Midlands Safari Park and try to hunt one of the animals. So I think it's a good thing, actually.
Is there a coffee bar in the Jurassic Park area?
There is.
Well, they're not right in that area, but just outside there is.
Yes.
In fact, whether you're never far from a coffee bar.
Well, the restaurant had a dinosaur theme. The restaurant we went into, we had coffee. Now it was all done with dinosaurs. So, yes, definitely. It definitely did have a dinosaur theme. Though many of the shops were closed, by the way, because it was Monday when we went. And there weren't that many people there, which is good, really, because we had the whole place to ourselves.
Alessandra asks, and this is a good question, and I don't have the answer, where do they keep those animals that are used to very hot places from the cold winters in Great Britain?
Well, I wondered about the penguins.
Yes, well, I can only assume that if it's... I mean, Africa does have a winter period, and from programs we've been watching, the temperatures can get quite low at night in sort of areas of Africa, lower than you think, actually,
because it's exposed.
So I mean, we were watching a program recently about it, and they were saying the temperature was around 18 to 20 degrees, which is that's like an average spring day here in the UK. But yes, I would think that they have to take them indoors if there's going to be very bad cold weather. I don't know. I'd like to know that if we find out the answer to that.
Yes, we did notice there were some areas where there were large. They looked like large sheds or big places where clearly many animals could be kept and looked after. So I think at night they all do go away and they are kept comfortable.
Can I mention something quick? Francesco Scopese, I don't know if I pronounced that right, uses a phrase which we tend to use in the UK if you're asking somebody if they want a cup of tea. Do you fancy a cup of cha? Or just a cuppa? People will often say, do you fancy a cuppa? And if somebody in England says, do you fancy a cup of cha or a cuppa, it just means, do you want a cup of tea?
Yes. Well, cha, of course, is Chinese for tea.
Yes, so there we go. So, yeah, a cuppa. Fancy a cuppa just means, do you want a cup of tea? Although these days probably people would say, do you want tea or coffee?
Yes.
Because you have to assume that people don't necessarily, in the UK now, all drink tea. Because we don't.
We do not. We don't all drink tea.
Fancy a cuppa? Do you fancy? We'll have a cuppa after this live stream. And it will be tea, because we've had the coffee.
Cuppa.
A cuppa.
A cup of tea. A cup of coffee.
Yes, cha means tea. Is it Chinese or is it Indian?
It does also mean, well, I did live in China. It is definitely also Chinese for tea.
Right. Yeah, that's it, which of course is where we think of tea coming from. But of course, tea, most of our tea. I mean, we used to have the famous clipper ships, didn't we? That those sailing boats from the 1800s that used to sail all across from India and down to China to get the tea to bring it back to the UK.
Tea and opium.
Famous clipper ships. In fact, there's a make of tea called Clipper. You can look that up, Clipper ships.
Yes.
Which were very fast, fast sailing boats that used to bring the tea back from all the foreign countries that we used to buy it from.
So you could have a cup of tea and then smoke some opium afterwards, and it was all it made the day go much quicker. It is 5:03, Mr. Steve.
There's a famous phrase, isn't there, for all the tea in China? That's a famous phrase, isn't it? I wouldn't have that for all the tea in China.
Okay.
It makes you think that you no matter how much it's worth, I wouldn't have it.
That's it.
Right, what were you going to say, Mr. Duncan? I interrupted you then.
You did. So today we are looking at dreams. To be in a state of dreaming, or maybe there are many other ways of referring to dream. Maybe you dream about something, maybe something you hope for or wish for. It is something we are going to talk about in a few moments' time. But as I mentioned, we got very close and personal with some animals last week. We had a wonderful day at West Midlands Safari Park, and I've saved the best until last here. We got very up close and very personal with, I think it's safe to say that these are now our most favourite animal.
I think, yes, they're quite popular, not just with us.
We went and we had a close look at the giraffes.
My God, it's walking right past the car. Its legs as tall as the car. It's coming round this like this. Hello. Legs. That is just incredible. Oh my goodness, that was just...
Ooh, I've got neck ache, Mr. Duncan. Neck ache watching those giraffes.
Can I just say, we've had magical moments in our lives, Mr. Steve and myself, But that might be one of the most amazing moments we've ever experienced with wildlife. This giraffe came right up to the car, walked right by, and it was huge. And you don't realise how big they are until they're right next to you.
Well, their legs are taller than the car. I was absolutely taken aback, surprised. I didn't expect to see the animals that close up, but they were just wandering around by the cars. They look quite happy, and they seemed to... I think some people must feed them because they were going over to the windows of the cars. But they are, as somebody says here, Maria, they're cute. They are cute. They've got beautiful faces, and... I don't know, it just gives me neck ache to watch them because to hold that neck up all the time. Yet they're unfeasibly big. They don't look real. To me, it looked like it wasn't real. I couldn't quite believe it was a real thing. I thought it was just like some kind of robot.
I think they are the closest to dinosaurs that we have walking around. There is no other creature on the planet that looks like a giraffe. They are probably very similar to having dinosaurs walking around, but they're most amazing. I love their eyes, their big eyes, and they have those lovely eyelashes. But they are the most amazing, beautiful creatures, and we are now in love with giraffes. In fact, we're going to try and get one to come here to Much Wenlock because there's a big field behind us. The only problem is it's on a hill, and if there's one thing that giraffes don't like, they don't like anything that is on a slope because they can fall over very easily. So it's quite sad actually. They often fall over and they can't get back up, or they can injure their legs very easily.
Yes, Christina, this is West Midlands Safari Park. People are asking where we were. It's in actually Worcestershire, I think, isn't it?
Yes, it's kind of Worcestershire. It's very close to a place called Bewdley. In fact, it's a beautiful area around there. We saw some lovely places, some nice places.
Southwest of Birmingham, Kidderminster, that sort of area.
West Midlands Safari and Leisure Park, to give it its full title. Amazing place, a little bit expensive. It was £52 for two people, but you get a special discount.
Well, that's for the car, isn't it?
No, it's for the whole thing, for the whole day.
Yes, that's what I mean. But you pay the money's for the car. You pay £50, or was it £25 each?
£25 each.
Oh right, okay. I thought it was for the car. No. You just paid for the car to go in. Oh, right, okay.
That covers the whole day. So you can drive around in the car first of all, then you park your car, and then you can walk around the whole place as well. It's an amazing place. If you have kids, they have a very special rate for the children, so it's quite cheap if you have a whole family. But it's pretty good.
Yeah, you can be there all day.
Yeah,
and there's an amusement park as well. So yeah, you drive around. You do the drive around bit. You can't walk into those areas, and then there's a separate area with all the other things that like the. But the lions, we did show those earlier, Saturino. That area is fenced. You've got to go through a traffic light process, and
yes, there are huge gates that come across and close like Jurassic Park.
Fences, and
it is. It's just like Jurassic Park, isn't it?
It was, and there were electric fences everywhere. In fact, you had to drive over an electric fence to get in there to obviously stop them getting out.
Yeah.
But the lions were they were there, but they weren't as friendly as the giraffes.
Well, most of them were asleep. So that's what they do. Lions and tigers, they often sleep all day, and then they only wake up and walk around at night in the evening, and that's when they're hunting. They're looking for those other animals that are sleeping. So quite often you will see the big game, I believe they're described as, often sleeping during the day, which is what I wish I could do as Well, to be honest with
So
you.
the giraffes seem to be having a nice time, but I don't think the lions are having a nice time because they can't really hunt as they would do in the wild.
Yes. Well, what I think happens, because you never see feeding time, I think they must be bringing dead animals out, and we never get to see that.
They probably
We
do.
never get to see that because that would be too horrific. The other thing we didn't see any elephants. We saw one elephant in the distance, but we didn't see lots of elephants, and we couldn't work out why. So I was going to ask someone, but I forgot. And also, they all look very miserable, the people working there. By the way, if you're listening, any bosses at West Midlands Safari Park, can you ask your staff just to cheer up slightly because
Wow.
they all look so miserable?
I don't know what was going on, but literally everybody, from the person who took our ticket on the gate to people selling ice cream to the restaurant. They must be on minimum wage or something because they all looked miserable and so unhappy.
Yeah, the animals look really happy.
Yes, I mean, actually, yes, the animals were actually, I think, happier than the people that were looking after them.
Very strange.
Very strange, very odd atmosphere from the people that work there. Maybe it was because we went on Monday.
Yes.
But
Yeah, I suppose so. It was Monday, and no one is happy on Monday because they have to go back to work. But the animals were really having a great time indeed. We have a subject to talk about today, and it's a subject that I think we all connect to this particular subject in some way, and I think it is fair to say that we all have some connection to today's subject. I love the thumbnail, by the way. I'm going to show you the thumbnail for today's lesson. Look at that. So there I am. You can see that I am living my dream as being a BBC presenter.
right.
So there I am in my dream world or dreamland. And behind me, you can see Mr. Steve is driving his dream car.
Well, that doesn't look like my dream car, but
Well, I know it's not a Ford Mustang, but
that looks like a Beetle convertible.
it's a representation.
Oh, actually, is it a Porsche 911?
It isn't anything.
Convertible.
I made it on AI.
Oh, right. It's a mixture of a Beetle. The 911 does look a bit like a Beetle.
Yeah, it is. It isn't any particular car. It's just I just put red sports car that looks very cool, and that's what it came up with. So thank you very much, artificial intelligence. So our dreams are there on the screen right now. Mr. Steve wants his nice car, and I want to work for the BBC. So that's what we're talking about today. Dreams, words connected to that very subject. Welcome. Welcome to Dreamland. I hope you have a nice day.
Was that an effect? I didn't hear that.
There was an echo, you see.
Oh, right, because I can't tell.
No, okay then. To dream. To dream. Now this is a very generic phrase. When we say to dream, it can be anything really. Anything you are thinking of, anything that you are wishing for, hoping for, or maybe you are wondering about the future, to dream, or perhaps, of course, in its more strict sense, I suppose we could say to dream when you sleep. You are dreaming about something, quite often, something that you have no control over. So your dreams at night are things that you cannot normally control. In fact, it is true that you can't really affect your dreams. Have you ever noticed that? When you're in a dream, you can't change what is happening in the dream. I always find that quite interesting. Drift. To drift. I'm sure you do this sometimes, Mr. Steve. Mr. Steve drifts. He dreams, you drift. Or you drift away.
Yes, daydreaming. I suppose you'll mention that, will you, later?
I will mention that, but that's okay. You can mention it.
Yes.
You drift away.
Yeah, I mean, yes, dreaming is what we do when we sleep. Sometimes you remember the dream, sometimes you don't. But you can dream during the day. You can just you're coming out of the present moment and you're off into a dreamland. Maybe you're thinking about your ideal partner, or you're fantasizing about somebody new at work that you quite like the look of.
Yes.
I mean, they say for men, most of our fantasies are to do with relationships. So we say that in a...
Some sort of desire.
Don't men think about
yes
a certain subject
you've just
every
said that.
so many seconds?
Daydreamer. A daydreamer. There was a very famous song for the 1970s. I'm just a daydreamer, wishing my time away. I think it was David Cassidy. Very nice song. Daydreamer. I think we all do this quite often. I think the most common time of day when people daydream is between the hours of 1:30 in the afternoon and about 4:30.
That's very specific.
I think it is, but I'm just going from my point of view, because that is normally for me the time of the day when I start to dream or drift away. I start to daydream or think of other things. Maybe I get a little bit sleepy in the afternoon, so my mind will start to drift away. I will think of other things.
Particularly if you've just eaten at lunchtime, you might have had a heavy lunch with a lot of carbohydrate in it, and you tend to get a bit sleepy, don't you? That's always that period just after lunch. See, I was on a sales conference last week, and they know full well that people coming back off lunch, they're going to be hard to get people to concentrate. So they do these little activities to try and liven you up before the next speaker comes on.
And the thing I used to love, when I lived in China, you would go around all of the shops after midday, between midday and maybe 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Everyone would go to sleep in China, and you would go around the shops and everyone would be just asleep at their counters like this. Or my favourite place to go to in China was always the bed shops, where they sold all of the bedding and the beds. And people who worked at those shops would actually be asleep on the beds that they were selling. No one was awake. So you would walk around the bed shop and everyone was asleep on the beds that they were actually selling.
That was if you like an afternoon sleep and it's allowed by your employers, then a shop that sells beds is the place to be, obviously.
Sleeping is a very important part of Chinese day-to-day life, I think it's safe to say. Here's another one.
As it is in sort of Spain. Well, certainly we always associate the siesta, don't we, with Mexico and Spain and maybe Italy to a certain extent, where people, and France, of course.
When it's very hot.
When it's very hot,
yes.
Then people don't work during those hot afternoon periods, and then they work later on in the evening instead.
So a daydreamer can also be a person who is wishing for something. Maybe they drift away in their mind. Maybe they fantasize as well. To fantasize, I think we all do it. I often like to believe that one day I will have a job on the BBC reporting from around the world and travelling, doing little documentaries about different cities or maybe a certain subject. I know it's only a dream and it probably won't ever come true, but one day maybe it might happen.
Yes, I fantasize about driving in a Ford Mustang. Actually, not so much now. I think I've lived out my passion in fantasizing, and it's almost like I'm over it now.
Oh.
It's quite strange, actually. Yes, I almost feel as though, do I really want one now? I've gone through like a 2 or 3 year period of thinking I want one. I haven't bought one, but I've been obviously fantasizing about driving it and looking at videos and everything. But now it's almost like I have owned one. And now I'm I'm not bothered anymore.
That is the best way to live.
That's quite an admission from me.
That's a good way to live, by the way. You dream about these things and then you believe that you actually lived them. And I think that's great because it's very cheap.
Stefan says, "Who knows? Are we really awake right now? Do we know?" Well, that's it. You know, a lot of people do say this.
I have this question quite often about Mr. Steve. I'm never sure if Mr. Steve is awake.
Who knows if consciousness is a reality or whether it's all just a dream and we don't really, you know, it appears to be real, but in fact it isn't.
Well, it must be a nightmare then.
We don't know, do we?
That's all I can say. I think it's more like a nightmare, to be honest.
We all like to fantasize, don't we?
I think so, yes.
Usually about, ideal partners.
Yes, quite often things, or, of course, having money. I think money is something that a lot of people dream about, think about, fantasize about. If only I was a millionaire, my life would be so much better. I would live in absolute comfort. But
that's it.
You might not necessarily be happy.
Well, don't people, the typical time to sort of go into sort of a daydream or a fantasize is when you buy a lottery ticket, because then a lot of people say, well, they imagine what they're going to do with that £1 million. And I suppose it's healthy.
It won't change me.
It's healthy in a way, and it's good to sort of, because if you daydream a bit, it's good to do that or fantasize, because that might encourage you or spur you on to actually changing your life in some way. Because probably if you are fantasizing about something, then maybe it is worth moving in a direction towards trying to achieve that. It may be something that you maybe positive, it may not be.
You go to Dreamland. Dreamland is a place where we all drift off to. Quite often when we go to sleep, you go to Dreamland. Dreamland, we all have our own dreamland in our minds. Maybe a certain place we would like to live in, or maybe a certain surrounding that we would like to exist in as well. So we all have those little places we like to go to. We like to think about something. It takes us away from the day-to-day toil and trouble of life. I think it's safe to say.
Beatrice is off to the airport.
Oh, where are you?
I think she's off to the mountains.
Are you off to the mountains?
I think so. So yes, have a good trip. She's going to keep in touch at the airport.
Well,
that's very, very loyal of you, and very committed to Mr. Duncan's live stream.
Have a good trip.
Yes, have a good trip. Yes, we are all trapped in our habits, says Stefan. A lot of philosophical comments from Stefan today, which is always very welcome. There is more to think about than what we see and what is going on. Yeah, yes. Good point.
You might have a romantic vision, and I think this is what you said, really, when you think about it. We all have desires. Let's not cheat ourselves. Let's not kid ourselves. We all have urges and desires, things we would like in our life. Quite often we think of maybe a person we would like to meet. We have that dream person. Maybe a dream girl or a dream boy. Somebody you want to spend your life with. You have an image in your mind. Quite often, that's all it is.
Because in reality, you end up with something somewhat less.
You always have to settle for less.
Quite often, unless you are already. You've been born with certain physical attributes, maybe fantastic good looks, that make you automatically attractive to the sort of people that you would want to be in your dreams attracted to. Whereas the majority of us with average or below average looks can only ever dream about getting somebody who's fabulously good looking.
But I think everyone does it anyway. Everyone has an image in their mind of a person they would like to meet. But I think also there is a sense of realism as well. So the fantasy is something we imagine, but of course we also have to keep our feet on the ground. We have to make sure that we stay realistic, because I think it's true And I think it's very realistic to think that maybe you won't meet that person that you always imagine that you will meet one day.
Yes, one day I will. One day I'll meet somebody, the man of my dreams.
To romanticize something. Now, this is interesting. So you might have a romantic vision, something you want to have. To romanticize can also be a similar thing, where you make one particular thing seem wonderful. To you, it is the best thing to do in the world. For you, it is the most magic thing to romanticize. And I suppose you can romanticize anything when you think about it. Some people romanticize the workplace. They think maybe if they go to work every day, perhaps they will meet that special person, even though quite often it won't happen. But it's nice to romanticize about something.
It's not just about relationships. It can be about the past. You can romanticize your childhood or certain aspects or periods of history.
Oh, yes.
You can turn them into, you can forget about all the good bits and just remember the nice bits. And romanticize doesn't just mean about relationships.
When we see certain things portrayed, such as war, quite often you will see something romanticized. So maybe you make it appear as if it's something that it actually isn't. Maybe you make it appear as if everyone is falling in love during a difficult time. You romanticize it. But in real life, that particular thing is not happening at all. Here is another one. You have a vivid dream. Now, I love this word. I don't know why. The word vivid is always an interesting word. So my style of teaching English is vivid. It's very clear. It's very clear and easy to understand. And you can also have a vivid dream, something so real. Whilst you are asleep, you have a vivid dream, or maybe something you imagine that's very clear in your mind. A bit like you. I think Mr. Steve has sometimes very vivid views. Sometimes when you decide to do something, Steve, you actually drive yourself to do it, even though sometimes it might take a while to encourage yourself. Once you get that thing in your mind, you see it vividly, a bit like the job that you have now, because you wanted to go back to work and a job opportunity came along and you were determined to get that job. So it was very vivid, that idea in your mind.
Yes, well, anything that everything starts with a thought, with a dream, doesn't it? Anything that you want to do in life starts with a dream, really, a fantasy, something that you want. And then if you really want it strongly enough, you will work out a way of doing it. And they do say, there's a book, I can't remember, a sort of a motivational book. The more you think about, whatever you think about the most will come to pass. So if you think about something, this is what they say about people who become successful in business, and we've touched on this before, in business and whatever they do in life, they just focus all the time. That's all they ever think about, is that one thing. So they want to become a famous singer or a famous actor, or they want to become the boss at work. You'll probably find that they have been vividly thinking about that for a long period of time, and it's almost sort of taken over their lives. But yes, it starts with an image in your head, a dream if you want, and then if that is strong enough, it will then become reality later on down the road.
To turn something that you imagine into reality. So it can be something that you have that you want to do, but you want to make it real. Vivid, a vivid dream, something that is very realistic.
Yeah, do you need to be lucid? Is lucidity necessary to have a vivid dream, says Inaki? Or to be lucid means you're probably awake, doesn't it?
Yes.
So, yes, I mean, you can have a very strong vivid dream. You could call that a fantasy, or while you're awake. But yeah, or you can be fast asleep. If you have a vivid dream, you can wake up in the morning and say to your partner, or to your friends at work, I had a vivid dream last night. Sometimes it's so powerful, it just means it's very clear. You remember everything about it. And sometimes it's so strong you actually might think it's prophetic in some way.
Yes, maybe.
You might be worried that it might actually happen.
Yes, so something good might happen, but also you can have a nightmare or a bad dream.
Yes.
And you might imagine that will happen. But it is impossible, and this is
Just means it's very clear, doesn't it? You remember it.
Yes. It's very difficult to change a dream whilst you are having it. So if you are fast asleep and you are dreaming, you can't actually alter what is happening in the dream, even if you want to. So it's very hard to have a lucid dream. Lucid means to be aware and awake, and you can look around and explore the environment that you're in. But quite often, or almost always, you can't change a dream whilst you are in it. And I had a weird dream last night. And I know that the dream was not a good dream. It wasn't pleasant. And there is nothing I could do about that dream. I just had to let it play in my head. There is nothing I could do about it to make it different.
Although somebody said earlier that it is proved you can sometimes, at least sometimes, alter your dreams. And I think sometimes I've been in a dream and I haven't liked the way it's gone, and I've been trying to force it in a certain way. But maybe I'm more awake at the time.
I think so.
Yes, if you're lucid, it just means you're awake. You're conscious.
Yes,
you make sense.
I can touch the world around me.
If somebody somebody's fainted or they've had a bump on the head, and you're talking to them and they don't seem to know what's going on, they don't know where they are, you would say that they're not lucid. When you're aware of your surroundings, then you're lucid. Just means you're awake and aware of your environment and your surroundings.
When we think of dreaming, we often think of wishing, something we wish would happen. Your dream job, your dream trip, your dream partner, as Steve said earlier. We can also use hopes. Your hopes as well, the hopes you have.
Your hopes and dreams.
Yes, for the future. Or maybe something that you wish would happen in the future. Something that occurs in your dreams. We can also use this as a phrase as well. If a person says that they want to do something, but you know that they can't do it, you say, in your dreams. So
yes.
you are saying it sarcastically.
You might say, your friend might say, I think I'll ask that beautiful girl out. She's 20 years younger than me. I don't have a job, but I'm going to ask her out. And your friend might say, in your dreams.
Yeah.
Because that's probably what it will remain.
Because what you are actually saying is there is no chance of that happening.
Yes.
In your dreams, the only place that thing is going to occur is when you are fast asleep, having a dream. Talking of which...
I'm going to win the lottery.
Yes.
In your dreams, because chances of winning the lottery are remote.
To sleep, to dream. As Shakespeare once said when he talked about life and death, that chance to dream, perchance to have that moment of sleep, what dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil. To snooze, a short sleep. So maybe you go to bed, you have a little short sleep. The other word we can use is nap as well. Nap. You have a snooze. You have a nap. Here's another
short
one.
Sleep.
Yes.
Maybe in the afternoon you have a 5 or 10 minute nap. You just switch off for 5 minutes.
You drowse. Now, drowse is interesting because you don't actually go to sleep. You feel as if you are about to fall asleep, but you don't quite fall asleep. You drowse. I'm sure this is happening to you sometimes, Mr. Steve, when you're driving. Maybe suddenly you feel your eyes become heavy and you start to drowse. You start to go into a different state. You start to fall asleep. You don't fall asleep. Please don't fall asleep while you're driving. Or you.
The car beeps at you now. If it detects, modern cars now, if you it detects you're dropping off to sleep. There are sort of, I don't know how it does it.
I think it knows your eyes are closed.
Yes, it did it to me actually when I was driving down to London. It must have thought I was dropping off to sleep because I suddenly heard this big beep and it said, "Stop for a rest."
Yeah, that's good though. I'm glad your car is doing that.
Yes.
To drowse, maybe a person will feel drowsy. Certain types of medicine. So maybe if you have a cold, you might take some cold remedy, and quite often it will make you feel a little drowsy.
Painkillers will often do that, make you feel drowsy, which is why they say don't drive or operate machinery with certain medicines, hay fever medicines,
yes,
in particular, some of the cough and cold medicines, or strong painkillers.
It can make you
drowsy.
And we have drop off. A person, when they drop off, it means they fall asleep. They drop off.
Yes.
It's a great expression, and it's one we use quite often. My granddad came round. He had a meal with us. We had a big Sunday roast, and then afterwards he dropped off. He dropped off. So he dropped off. He fell asleep.
I have a dream, says Christina. Yes, Martin Luther King, his famous quote, started one of his speeches with that. And that's it, you see. You often, as we've mentioned earlier, reality happens after you have a thought about it. Think about it, you dream about it, and then you put into place things that will hopefully make that event occur.
Bless you, Mr. Steve. There is Mr. Steve sneezing.
I'm getting drowsy now, Mr. Duncan, because I've been standing up for an hour and a half.
It's okay because we're going. In a few moments from now, we will be disappearing, but don't worry, I am back on Wednesday. I'm doing a live stream because, of course, we are coming towards the middle. Well, in fact, we are at the middle of October. And, of course, the end of this month, we celebrate the anniversary of my YouTube channel. It will be 17 years that I've been here on YouTube, and we'll be celebrating that. We will start the celebrations next Wednesday. So I will be with you from 2 p.m. UK time next Wednesday, and we can share a little bit of time together, hopefully learning some English as well. And Mr. Steve will be back with us next Sunday as well. We are doing it all over again together next Sunday, and me on my own on Wednesday. Don't forget, please give us a lovely like to show that you care.
Yes, it helps Mr. Duncan's videos spread out across YouTube.
There we go. I'm being very subtle just by having this on the screen. Please give us a like. It's very, very important. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope whatever your dreams are in your life, I hope one day they will come true. And of course, until the next time we meet here, it's Mr. Steve and me, Mr. Duncan, saying take care, catch you later. And of course, until the next time we meet, you know what's coming next. Yes, you do. Are you ready?
I'm ready, Mr. Duncan.
Are you wearing your ring?
I'm not.
Mr. Steve is not wearing his ring again. He keeps forgetting that he's married. And of course, Ta-ta
for now.
You are a naughty, naughty Mr. Steve.